Every time you buy a product, you are participating in a market structure. These structures, defined by the number of sellers, product type, and entry barriers, determine how much power a firm has over the price and ultimately whether the market is truly efficient. While the rules of the game change, every single firm, from a small farmer to a giant tech monopoly, follows one universal rule to maximize profit. They produce at the quantity where marginal revenue MR equals marginal cost MC. Marginal revenue is the additional revenue from selling one more unit, and marginal cost is the additional cost of producing that unit. The difference lies in how their perceived demand curve dictates the price they can charge. Let's start on the side of maximum competition. Perfect competition. Perfect competition requires 6 extreme conditions: many buyers and sellers, identical products, full information for rational decisions, and crucially, free entry and exit. Because their product is identical and there are so many substitutes, competitive firms are price takers. The perfect competitor faces a perfectly elastic, horizontal demand curve at the market price. Their marginal revenue is equal to the price. They maximize short-run profit where this horizontal price line intersects the upward-sloping marginal cost curve. In the short run, a firm decides to operate if the market price is above the average variable cost. The shutdown point is where the marginal cost curve intersects the minimum average cost curve. If the price is below average variable cost, they shut down immediately to only incur fixed costs. In the long run, entry and exit forces drive economic profits to zero. This happens when price equals marginal revenue equals marginal cost, and price equals average cost at the minimum of the average cost curve. This equilibrium achieves both allocative efficiency, where price equals marginal cost, and productive efficiency, where the firm produces at the minimum average cost. Resources are allocated to their best alternative use, providing the maximum satisfaction attainable by society. Now, let's jump to the other extreme, the monopoly. Only one firm produces all output, and they have the power to choose both output and price, subject only to demand. Monopolies form because of powerful barriers to entry. These barriers include legal monopolies, control of physical resources, and a natural monopoly, where economies of scale are so large compared to market demand that only one firm can produce efficiently. Since the monopolist is the entire market, their perceived demand is the market demand, downward sloping. They must lower the price to sell more, meaning their marginal revenue curve is always below the demand curve. They find their profit maximizing quantity, where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, but they set the price by finding the consumer's willingness to pay on the demand curve for that output level. Are monopolies efficient? No. They are not allocatively efficient because the price they charge is always greater than the marginal cost at the profit maximizing level. Since they face no competition, they also have no incentive to increase efficiency, which allows positive profits to become comfortable. Now, for the imperfect competition structures. Monopolistic competition has many firms and free entry and exit, but the key is differentiated products. Differentiation can be based on physical aspects, location, or consumer perceptions of the product. Since each firm has a mini monopoly over its specific differentiated item, their demand curve is downward sloping. However, because many substitutes exist, their demand is more elastic than a pure monopoly's. Due to free entry and exit, new firms continue to enter until economic profits are zero. Graphically, this happens when the perceived demand curve becomes tangent to the average cost curve. At this long-run equilibrium, price equals average cost. Monopolistic competition is inefficient. They are not productively efficient because they don't produce at the minimum of the average cost curve, and price is greater than marginal cost, so they fail the allocative efficiency test too. Finally, the oligopoly, a small number of firms dominating the market, each holding a large market share, like a duopoly. These firms are mutually interdependent. Their output, pricing, and advertising decisions depend entirely on their rivals' actions. Oligopolies have two choices: compete, which would push prices towards the competitive outcome, or collude, coordinating on output and price to act like a single monopoly, which is formalized in a cartel. We use game theory, often the prisoner's dilemma, to model this. Even though both firms would make higher profits by cooperating, there is too much of an incentive to cheat by increasing output and undercutting the partner. This incentive to defect often leads firms to act in their own self-interest, making coordination unstable. Oligopolies are also considered imperfect competition and are generally not efficient. They maintain market power and profits for longer due to high barriers to entry, which means they have less incentive to produce at the lowest cost compared to perfectly competitive firms. Understanding these market structures is key to understanding prices, innovation, and why some products are cheap while others are expensive. If you learned something new, hit like and subscribe.